What up everyone, this is Supvolcom and I'm going to do a video on Ranger Stigmas today. I've gotten a lot of questions, especially while I stream, on what stigmas do I use, why don't I have Bullet Blessing, what is that stigma that looks like a foot. So hopefully this video will clear everything up. So I'll start off by listing all the stigmas that I use, and then I'll say a little bit about why I use them and why I find them good, specifically for PvP. And then I'll end the video off with some PvE stigmas, which should be pretty obvious anyway. So, first off, here's a look at the greater stigma trees. You can see that I only use focus shots in the bottom tree, and I go up to hard shot for the top tree. This offers a lot of mobility and pretty good damage, especially with the low cooldowns and the fact that you can use these on the go. And since they fixed retreating slash, I think in the 4.0 update, it's been amazing to use during fights. So we'll go on to the other stigmas now. My build is all about utility over pure power. A lot of rangers like to go full burst by getting explosive and Bullet Blessing. They pop out on hide and pop devotion, all their buffs, and pray that they get good RNG so they can burst them down. But as most rangers know, sometimes you'll hit a 5k stunning shot, but sometimes you'll hit a 1k, like despite all of the buffs that you have. So that's not really a reliable source, especially if you're trying to survive after you burst someone down. Maybe you're 1v3ing or 1v2ing, which I love to do. So for that, I take the utility route, and I take Nature's Resolve, Feint, Silence Arrow, which is pretty standard, and Sleep Arrow, which are pretty standard. A lot of rangers even that watch my stream ask about Nature's Resolve and Feint, and aren't sure what it is or what they do or why I use them. Well, Feint pretty much nullifies Ankle Snare, and back in the day, Ankle Snare used to be the most deadly thing for a ranger, because if a Glad got a hold of you and Ankle Snared you, you were done. You had no way of escaping, really. You can't pot it. Hardly anyone even ran Nature's Resolve back then, because it wasn't buffed yet. So, using this one skill alone gets you out of Ankle Snare, gets you out of Root from a Cleric. Maybe if you don't have a pot up, it gets you out of a slow in case you're running away from a giant EB Zerg. And it's overall really great. It also makes your opponent lose target of you, so it's overall a really great skill. And it's only on a 3-minute cooldown, which is doable, although it could be lower. Next would be Nature's Resolve, and they buffed it, I think in 4.0, that it now resists 2 magical attacks instead of 1. I think that's what it was. So now if you're fighting a Sork, I love dueling Sorks, I find it a really technical duel. But if you're dueling a Sork, you FE their Arcane Thunderbolt or whatever. Now you also have this option to resist Balar Seeker or Storm Strike or Sleep Storm, anything. It's also used for Ankle Snare, so you've got 2 means of escapes from roots and all that, as long as that's not buried on there. Too bad. Silence Arrow, pretty self-explanatory. Almost every ranger ever will be running Silence, and I stack a lot of MA as well, so this rarely gets resisted. And Sleep Arrow also pretty common, and again I stack a lot of MA, so gets resisted not too often anymore. So with this build, you can easily go into a 1v2 or a 1v3 and get off quick skills and then kite around a bit and hopefully burn down your target. And because you have the utility and mobility, you can actually get away and then come back in and take down the next guy and the next guy, and then get a nice little clip for your PvP video and call them bad. Now, reasons that I don't use Bow of Blessing or Explosive Arrow are, like I said, Rangers have the worst RNG in the game. Not much of our damage is consistent. So you could buff up everything you have and go on a guy and hit him for a wet noodle stunning shot. And there's your biggest hit that you were going to rely on to kill him. So what's all that damage useful for now if you don't have it anymore? Now you just don't have the escapes or the utility to kite him around as much or as effectively. And they might be able to turn on you if you're going in 1v2 or 1v3. They're definitely going to be able to catch you because you don't have any means of getting away, except for maybe popping Malform and hoping you can outrun them. So overall, if you're into PvP, specifically smaller group PvP or solo like I am, then I think utility would be the best option. And I would show you guys some footage me using these out as examples, but I do have a video coming out soon, a PvP video, so you can see them all being practiced in real time there. So now I guess I'll just show what I swap out for PvE. Rangers, we don't really need a PvE set, and for most instances we don't even need to switch stigmas. But for some instances, such as Infinity Shard and DR, where DPS is really important, I switch out a couple stigmas to just give me the extra burst and the extra damage, not so much burst. So I use Bow of Blessing, Sharpen Arrows, Explosive Arrow, and Arrow Deluge. And I take out everything that is based on utility. So I take out Nature's Resolve, Faint, Sleep, Silence. So if I were to run into an Helios that way, I'd probably be fucked, because I have no way of silencing them except for a Lucky Godstone proc. I don't have Nature's Resolve to get rid of debuffs or resist anything. I can't get out of a root if my pot's not up. But in PvE, it gives a significant amount of damage just because you're hitting the boss for so long and all that, that you can actually notice the difference. So it is worth that. Lastly, I'll go over some variations for my Stigma build. If I were to choose anything different about this, I would swap out Sleep Arrow for Dilation Arrow. And Dilation Arrow is a newer Stigma put in 4.5. It's a 65 Stigma that you get from being the top DPS at a fort or running EB. And you can probably just buy it on the broker by now for pretty cheap. What it does is doubles the cast time of everything and makes the enemy's attack speed twice as slow for 6 to 8 seconds. So for those of you who play League of Legends, it's like a really OP exhaust. It nullifies a whole bunch of damage and really makes the person useless if they don't get that debuff off them by the time it's up. What you sacrifice, though, in my case I would sacrifice Sleep Arrow, is an easy ability to lock silence or blind on them, because you can Sleep Arrow them from a distance, walk up, use your traps, and bada boom, you got blind or silence locked on the person for however long. So if you're comfortable with dropping Nimble Fingers and then dropping your traps on them without them being slept first, then I think you would probably enjoy Dilation Arrow. I've played around with it a little bit, and I personally like Sleep Arrow, so I can sleep one guy and go on the next guy. Not so much just sleeping one guy and then running up to him and dropping all my traps, but because I like to do 1v2s and 1v3s, Sleep Arrow seems to work a lot better for me than Dilation. Another variant, I guess you could kind of go into the Greater Stigma hybrid by maybe dropping Sleep and Faint and picking up Boa Blessing and Explosive. This used to be an okay build way back in 2.0, 2.5 when Feint wasn't a thing and Nature's Resolve wasn't buffed yet. People would go more for straight damage. Uh, it was fun when you actually got RNG on your side, but other than that, I wouldn't recommend dropping any skills for these two in PvP. So there's my thoughts on Stigma builds for Aion 4.5. Hopefully in 5.0 we get a nice little buff. Maybe a blind trap would be cool. Or maybe stunning shot always hits for 5k. That would be I think that'd be reasonable. And I'll probably do some more, I guess, instructional videos later, but look out for my PvP video that's coming out soon. And check out my stream, and hopefully you guys like this. So until next time, guys, goodbye.